Thank you for joining us at Youthology Resources. This is episode 51, and this is part 2 of our discussion on mental health and wellness. And you can go back to last week's episode 50. You can kind of catch up with us if you haven't seen that yet, where we deal with 4 approaches for youth leaders to help students through mental health issues, and kind of broke those down. Number 1 was to help students understand their worth. Number 2 was to help students to understand how important their words are. Wow, I mean, all of us need to understand that, and positivity versus negativity and those kind of things. And number 3 was wellness, and that's not just spiritual wellness. That includes physical wellness. That includes our social, relational wellness, right? Our circles and the kind of people we're hanging around with and the kind of people that we have speaking into our life. I mean, how critical is that? Into nutritional and exercise and also clinical help. So we dealt with that a little bit, and how those disciplines in our wellness can help shape our emotional quotient, right? Some of us have great emotional quotients, and that's pretty stable. Others, it's shifting and circumstantial and maybe a little bit chemical, right? Imbalances or whatever. We have to take care of ourselves with wellness. But then that issue leads us to that last area. So it was worth and words and wellness, and then we. And basically what we talked about there is our circle of friends and the community of people that we have around us. How important is the university of learning and the university of strength and the university of education, the university of framework, all these people that are around us that we could learn from and we could get strength from. And one of the things we talked about last week was the importance of referral, and that referral is not failure, okay? Referral is not failure. So that is a really critical point from last week, and we blogged on that, so you can kind of read on that too at youthology.com. But I'll give you the resources at the end, okay? So what I'm going to do in episode 51 here on mental health and wellness is deal with signs. So we've dealt with some of these approaches and how we can help students. What about taking the guess out of it and looking at the kind of things that you would see, not necessarily triggers, but once that depression has set in, or instability has set in, and that emotional instability has set in, what are some of the signs we can look for to help us as youth leaders with teenagers? So I'm going to give you several, and you'll kind of see how they range. Okay, so let's go there. Before we do that, let me give you the definition, okay? The definition for depression. I know that all mental health is just depression, but you'll see how that relates to a lot of the things we're going to talk about. So when you look at what I did is I put together about 4 different sources, from Webster's to all the way through Britannica and the Urban Dictionary, okay? I wanted to get as broad of a definition of depression as we could get. And I came up with this: a severe dejection, sadness, okay, confusion, and fear. A severe dejection, sadness, confusion, and fear that is considered long-term. It's not short-term. And it's really a critical point. As I was studying this and reading some mental health journals this week, one of the things that we have to do is to help students see that their moods, their drama, the circumstantial things that happen around them is not necessarily depression, okay? Generally, those who are in the clinical field will see depression as something that lingers, okay? So that's a really important point. we can help students get past the circumstantial, the momentary, okay? The momentary sadness or dejection or confusion or fear, the emotional flights that take place circumstantially, experientially, whatever, right? Bad news or whatever. So just with that definition, hopefully that will help you as we look at the different signs that you might see in young people, and then we're gonna end with a chapter that I think is really good for the Bible that will help you as youth leaders, maybe even create a series. You'll see where I'm going with that. Okay, so all right, number one, poor academic achievement. That could be missing classes. That could be attendance. It might just be performance and not attendance. Maybe they're going, but their grades have dropped, increasingly. Okay. Number two, withdraw from family and friends. Withdraw from their circle. Okay, that's that area of isolation, and you'll be able to read along with us this week because I'm going to deal with isolation, and you'll see where that comes from our text that I'm going to read in a minute too. Okay, so isolation, sadness, and hopelessness. I want to put those together because sometimes we can be sad and we can be emotional, but we don't lose hope. And oftentimes those who are dealing with depression have lost hope. And that is so important. Let me tell you a story. I had just finished a youth service one Wednesday night, and a student came up to me and was really depressed, and we were talking, and one of their best friends, while we were talking, kind of noticed and came over and said, "Listen, I'm so glad that he came up and talked to you. He's been wanting to commit suicide," and kind of came out on this for his friend. And the friend kind of looked at him, but then looked at me and said, "Yeah, I've just been so down, and that's all I've been thinking about. And I have this plan this weekend, and and right there, I just interrupted him, and this is what I said. I said, "You know what, man? There's so many people around here right now. Can we talk tomorrow? Can I pick you up after school tomorrow? Can we hang out tomorrow?" And you should have seen his face. Like it was like, yeah. Like tomorrow, you and me? I'm like, yeah, nobody else. We won't get your friend here who just outed you, that kind of thing. So, I wish you could have seen the countenance change. And that's what I mean by hope. Hope is so powerful. I really believe that hope is like a time clock. And what it does is it takes away that flight, that let me call it quick twitch decision making. When a student feels like there's just nowhere for them to turn, or everything is against them and they don't know what to do, that's the moment when hope turns the tables, changes their attitude. Now, so what I did was just tell him, "Listen, whatever you've been contemplating, let's put it off, because if we put it off, then he's going to go to sleep that night, that Wednesday night. He's going to wake up, go through school, and what's on his mind? Oh man, I'm having donuts or whatever. We ended up going to McDonald's, and it was in the wintertime. We just got some hot chocolate, right?" So these are really important things for you to consider, because I think oftentimes what happens is we forget the importance of tomorrow. Now, I know that maybe it's not the best thing to do all the time, but I'm telling you, when I picked this young man up, everything had changed. And just in that 24 hours, really 20 hours or so, what it resulted was him seeing that, okay, I can process whatever I'm going through, and by the time I talk to Pastor Jeff, I'm not going to feel the same way. We laughed. We talked about how school was going, the family situation. And you know what? That young man's countenance didn't just change that Thursday, 20 hours after I asked to see him. I didn't see him go through this public struggle or drama or flight with depression ever again. And I know that it doesn't always happen that way, right? But this is one story about hopelessness. Here's another sign. One of the things that we have to look for is aggression or anger or lashing out, be careful when you see that. That's another critical sign. Another sign that I look for in teenagers when they're struggling with depression is poor judgment. Okay, and what I mean by that is poor judgment that's made in the moment. Poor judgment that is like as soon as something happens, they crash, and they go over the edge, and they begin to make decisions that are not well informed and that are made out of emotion or out of hurt. So look at poor judgment and see if you can identify those kind of things that are going on with teenagers. That decision making that is not right for them. Okay, here's another one. One of the key signs that I've noticed in just about everyone is that they have no one to talk to. Okay, and if they do, it's the wrong people. It goes back to what we talked about in our last session, and I blogged on with the words, but I want to take that further. There are some people that really have no intimate or close friend. And so the way to counter that is not only through proximity with you as a leader and that person, okay, that proximity, interest, all right, the interest. You have to get somebody else involved. I love watching a student come to me and we deal whatever the problem is. And for me to say, hey, have you talked to, do you have a spiritual friend? Is there anybody in your life? Well, not really. And then when I suggest a friend, they're like, I know that person. Do you think they would hang out with me? I've seen that so many times. And so I want you to look for ways to broaden the circle and bring peer influence, peer accountability into another person's life that might be struggling with isolation or loneliness or pulling away from friends. They're not speaking and talking, because when teenagers begin to talk, okay, really listen, when teenagers begin to talk, they work things out because they're really resilient, and they end up finding a resolution. And then they realize, I'm not alone. I've got somebody else that hold it. They went through the same thing I did. Of course they did. So anyway, I hope some of those signs help, and this is what I want to read to you. And youth leaders, I think this is really important. I want you to find a time in the next few months to squeeze this chapter into a series on mental health. Maybe it's 1 week, maybe it's 2 weeks, because this is at the height. This is a time-sensitive issue right now with everything that's been going on. And so anyways, it is Psalm 31, verses 7 through 14. I'm not going to read it all, but I want you to see what David is talking about as he gets buried under his circumstances. And then we're going to finish. I'm almost done, so hang on, okay? And it says this in verse 7. I will be glad and rejoice in your mercy, for you have considered my trouble and my adversities and my enemy and my trouble. I'm just reading over and skipping through this. My grief and even my body and soul are hurting. That's an interesting part there. For I am in trouble and I'm sighing. I'm wasting away because of my enemies and those who have spoken against me, and my neighbors and those who are acquaintances to me who have hurt me. Right? All of this stuff. I am forgotten. So many people feel that, right? So in the midst of that, he says, one more, I'm broken, and fear is around me because I'm broken. Now listen, David, after he shares that, then turns the corner, and something happens. Listen to this. For even though I've heard the slander, and while others take counsel against me and scheme against my life, as for me, in the midst of all of this, I will trust in you, that you are with me through it. Isn't that powerful? I just love that. And it's a reminder that, listen, we aren't troubleless or fearless or problemless or adversity list, all of those things. It happens to all of us. It rains on the just and the unjust, and all of us go through something. So I just want to remind you that even though you're going through it, you're not going through it alone. Okay, so I hope this was helpful. Thank you again for joining us. You can go to youthology.com. You can go to all of our social media, hit the link tree, and it has all of our website information, YouTube and iTunes, and anywhere that you want to find us, you can get us there. The blog will be up here soon also, and then you'll see this posted on the website and at YouTube. Will you join us at YouTube? Okay? All right. Hey, thank you. Again, this is Youthology Resources, and we'll be back next week with another topic. I don't know where I'm going, but we'll bring you a great topic next week, okay? So thank you for joining us, and have a great week.